Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look on the stats and say I stink, but I feel like I've been better last games. But all I can do is keep on making plays and see what happens.
Well, I'll make sure I'm not saying that you stink, but like for you, do you put pressure on yourself?
No, there's always pressure, and I'm always want to play the best hockey whenever I'm out there. Some days goes better than others, but yeah, I'm just gonna try next game to be my best.
We always talk about it here, especially this market. You got to block out the noise. Whether it's good or bad noise, it's you just got to when you hit the rink here, you got to prepare yourself. Pressure hits you when you're not prepared. If you're not ready to go, or if you're my big speech to everybody is make sure you do your reps, make sure you're in shape, because those things you can control. If you're not prepared, that's when pressure hits you.
Pettersson, his thoughts on the way his season has gone so far, 3 assists in the 6 games, and Rick Tocchet on dealing with pressure, and we hear that Elias Pettersson reportedly might be letting the pressure get to him.
Yeah.
The person who talked with Elias Pettersson, the one person, is Farhan Lalji. He's going to join us in a bit. But a reminder that all of today's guests, including Farhan, standing by, brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. This Sunday, it's the annual Giants Trick or Sweet game with a 4 p.m. puck drop against Kamloops. Young Giants are encouraged to dress up to celebrate Halloween early and trick or treat during the intermissions. When you say young Giants, possible future Giants. On the suite level, following the game, it is also the first family skate.
Very nice.
Who wrote this, Ryan? Okay.
Oh, it was Henderson.
You actually have the first Gamily skate with the G.
Oh, my.
Head to VancouverGiants.com for full details and to grab your tickets for every game.
So you gave that to Dawn to read. Yeah, I didn't proofread it.
Were you under pressure
Just
there?
get the Farhan.
Farhan joins us now, BC and Canadian Football Hall of Famer. How are you, sir?
I'm good. That's the first time I've seen like a big full-page graphic promoting one of the things you guys are involved with before I come on. So, like, Henderson's really taking his game to the next level, hey?
Oh, yeah. No question about it. Hey, how did Saturday go for you? The Lions game, you worked that, and then a big party afterwards celebrating getting into the various halls of fame. How'd that go?
It was a blast just because you and your lovely wife, Lisa, came to the after party. Rick couldn't. I mean, I had to beg him, and he still couldn't come.
It's raining, man. It was raining.
Well, a lot of people
indoors.
braved the rain to come. It was a good time. Just ask Donald. It was a lot of fun. Even Ryan was invited. Ryan couldn't make it either. So 1 for 3 from your show. I feel pretty good about that, to be quite honest.
30%, 33.
Yeah, I'd be a pretty good baseball player.
Yeah, good point. Hey, Farhan, you talked to Elias Pettersson after practice yesterday. I believe you were the only member of the media to do that. So good on you. What do you make of this scuffle between Pettersson and JT Miller at practice?
Yeah, I didn't see it. I did hear about it, and it wasn't just the scuffle, but it was the words after where Miller allegedly called Pettersson a baby at the end of it. And we look, for a couple of years we've debated as to what the relationship of the two players is like. And I do believe that it's come a ways and that they're different. And, back in time, Pettersson and Miller both kind of admitted that, look, players are different and you're not going to be best friends with everybody. So when you look at what happened last year, then everybody believes the room's in a really good place, which I believe it is as well. But it's easy to kind of go back to that storyline when something like this happens. But for my money, I think this is just what happens in a practice between guys. It happens on every team all the time. So I don't want to read too much into it. Again, I know why. Everybody wants to say, well, Pettersson's making huge money now and making significantly more than Miller, and Miller's going to be upset if Pettersson's not carrying his weight and all of that stuff. But I just don't believe they think about those things in the moment. And sometimes things get heated and it happens. And I'm sure that Tocchet is right, that the next time these two are in a situation where one needs to come to the defense of the other, they'll be there for one another.
Yeah. Do you think a part of this, and you say that this is something that just happens spur of the moment, but is there any chances JT Miller doing something for the team? We got to get this guy going, whatever it takes.
Yeah, it's fair, right? But I'm not sure that that's necessarily the stuff that Pettersson responds to, right? Like, we know that he's a guy that isn't really great when it comes to tough love, right? He's better off when you put your arm around him and coddle him a little bit. When you grind him, he hasn't shown over the course of his career that he necessarily responds to that. So, was that part of what Miller was doing? It might have been, but I'm not sure that if it was, that was necessarily the best strategy.
Farhan, looking at the video of your interview with Pettersson, he didn't smile. He didn't laugh. It doesn't look like Bruce Boudreau said last week, it doesn't look like he's having fun. It was short and sweet, and it just looked like he didn't want to be there. That's what it looked like visually anyways, the optics.
Yeah, look, I don't think Pettersson likes talking to the media at the best of times because generally, especially of late, he knows what the topics are, right? And, with the question that I asked him, like, I know you guys didn't play the question itself, the first one, but I don't know that I could have asked it in a more friendly way, right? Because I did talk about the fact that him and his line mates in the last couple of games have looked really, really noticeable, and the chances are there. And the question was, do you feel like, because the chances are there, that it's just a matter of time before the goals come? So I tried to steer him in a positive direction, and yet the first thing that came out of his mouth is, you look at my numbers and it's easy to say that I stink, which we weren't saying, but it tells you that he knows what the storylines are out there and what the fans are talking about, right? So it's unfortunate because I think he knew, whether he wanted to admit it or not, that coming into this season, that was the big topic. I mean, there were two things: the health of Thatcher Demko and whether Pettersson was going to be able to bounce back from a really, really painful finish to last season. So he knew it was there, right? I mean, it's the elephant in the room, and that's where they're at. So fortunately for him, the Canucks are 3-1-2, and he hasn't scored a goal yet. Because imagine if the Canucks were, 1-3-2, and he hadn't scored, then the level of pressure that he would be feeling in this moment.
All right, you're at BC Lions practice right now. The Lions are going to find out who they play in the playoffs next week. Who do they match up better with, Saskatchewan or Winnipeg?
I think Saskatchewan. I think Winnipeg in November is a tough matchup for them, and there's a real premium on BC to play from ahead, because you just don't want the running games to be able to take the games over, right? So for me, I would think that if they get a chance to play Saskatchewan, they would probably prefer that. But some, I think, would prefer to see Winnipeg in the semi, as opposed to seeing them 1 week later in the final. So, both those teams are good. I think if Saskatchewan and Winnipeg were to play, it'd be a heck of a game. And I do think that BC, my prediction is that BC is going to wind up facing Winnipeg in the first round. I just think that Calgary's got 0 to play for. Saskatchewan's going to win that game. And I think Montreal at home, after what's happened the last couple of games, they're going to bring their best effort at home and find a way to beat Winnipeg in that game, which will put Saskatchewan in first place in the West. So, again, that's just a prediction. But, I think there's a real possibility they face Winnipeg. And I think BC matches up better with Saskatchewan because Winnipeg especially, they play all those off-coverage looks where they're dropping 9 guys, 8 guys into coverage, and I just don't think that's how BC wants to play offensively, and BC's going to need to put up points. They can't win a 17-12 game like Toronto did last week, right?
Vernon Adams, boy, was he good last week, Farhan. The receivers, they looked like they were at the beginning of the season. There was chemistry. He was throwing it deep, which Nathan hasn't done in the past 4 weeks. Can he keep it going? What did you see and gleam out of there where they can keep this going into the playoffs?
Well, I don't know if they can keep the deep shots going, and that's not because Vernon and the receivers aren't capable of that. It's more because that's just not how Winnipeg plays, right? If you look at Montreal and people questioned how much Montreal was trying, watch how much they blitzed, right? They like to pressure. That's what Noel Thorpe does. More players are near the line of scrimmage, and that opens up some shots downfield, and they took them. I just don't think those looks are going to be there from Winnipeg. So physically they can. I just don't know that the opportunities are there. But there are other ways for BC to move the football. Stanback's got to be involved. They've got to get the underneath passing game going. The challenge is when you play like that, you can't make mistakes, right? You've got to stay on schedule. So, we'll see if BC can do that. But one thing is certain that I think can carry over: the amount of energy that Vernon Adams was able to bring to the receiving corps and the entire locker room as a starter was pretty evident, right? So, I think the Lions are pretty excited as to, just being able to have, that leader back in charge, the guy whose team it clearly is. And, we'll see whether or not they can ride that energy and that momentum into a win in the first round.
Are you celebrating your Hall of Fame inductions this weekend as well? It's like a month-long celebration, isn't it?
No, that was just the one party. That was it. There isn't another induction coming for the Canadian Football Hall of Fame on Grey Cup morning on the Sunday, but there will not be a party. And we just had the one. And as I told you there, this was just, it wasn't about the induction. It was just a really good excuse to get a bunch of people together that I hadn't seen in far too long.
Well, again, congratulations. In all seriousness, congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Farhan.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. And listen, I don't want to end this on a somber note, but Dr. Jack Taunton, legendary pioneer in the field of sports medicine, the guy who started the Sun Run, who started the Vancouver Marathon, in the BC Sports Hall of Fame, member of the Order of Canada, passed away yesterday. Oh. He's been battling health issues for the last 10 or 12 years. So my condolences to his family and everybody that knew him. What a legacy Dr. Taunton left on the sports community in this province.
Farhan, thanks for this and thoughts and prayers to his family and friends.